Hi, this is Megan, and I am here with sketch number 1 from the February 2022 Creative Memories Virtual Crop. And this particular sketch, it's a single page sketch. We can see here we have 2 photos shown on it. When I put in the measurements, the photos themselves are pretty large. They are sized to be more about like a 5x7 for each of them. So you may need to make some adjustments if you don't have 5x7s to work with. I'm going to be using 2 4x6s. You could, divide a 5x7 in half and come up with a couple of, they're 3.5x5s. So like here where you have one horizontal 5x7, you could put 2 3.5x5s that are vertical. And here with the horizontal, with the vertical 5x7, you could put in 2 3.5x5 horizontal photos. So there's some options there. I am going to, like I said, I'm going to be working with 4x6s. I am going to use, stick with a generous mat. I'm not quite going all the way out to the second mat size, which is the 7 3/4 by 5 3/4. I'm sticking with, I think my actual mats, I think are 5x7. It was more about kind of not being too crazy using paper. I am going to be making one other adjustment in here that you'll see to kind of bring things together since I'm working with smaller elements. So we're going to get started. I have 2 photos. My oldest child, his 16th birthday. So these were from, oh my gosh, he's getting ready to turn 19 now. So this was 2019 when he turned 16. And he had a few friends over. It was kind of a fun little, how it all worked out was kind of fun. So I've got some fun journaling to do in here. But I do have these 2 photos to use, and it works just perfect. I'm going to be using the Happy Birthday, or excuse me, the Party Time collection. I'm going to be using a lot of the stuff out of the Blues and the Party Time Blues pack. So I've got this craft paper that has, it's white and craft triangles. The other side is just some small blue dots on it. And so you can see here, the photos are going to go on as such. I am using, for this top detail up here, I am using the banner paper, but the piece of banner paper that I had was a little short. I actually cut a piece of banner. I cut my 2 pieces of banner paper, and I only have these kind of weird sizes to work with. But it's going to be okay because if you look at the sketch, you only see a portion of that border, and then there's a little portion over here. I can have room for a break behind this photo here. So I have to keep that in mind when I'm placing my photos, that I'm going to hide the fact that I'm going to have a gap in my banner, that border up here at the top. So I've got a gap there. And because I'm working with smaller elements, instead of doing the 1 1/4 inch top, I went clear out to, this is 1 3/4 inches. And then this stripe paper that I'm using as kind of the mat to the border is 2 inches wide. So I went a little bit more generous here because, like I said, a lot of my elements that are in here are a little smaller, and they're going to feel like they're kind of floating out there if I didn't make some adjustments to make things a little bit bigger. So I've got a little bit more of a larger size mat, or excuse me, border detail is coming here at the top. And I do have a couple of 5x7 photo mats that I cut from the paper. So you can see if I just do a quick dry fit, you can see how this kind of starts to come together. That this will lay on here as such, the 2 mats. But even with those photos on here, and if I tuck things in, it still kind of felt like things were floating. I do have a little more detail that I'll show you, I'm going to add in here. But I put together a title box. So they use a horizontal title box here. I liked this. This was part of a mat. You can see I cut out that center using the custom cutting system. I cut out the center of the mat. And then I used my banner punch, and I punched a bunch of different banners. So I'm keeping that banner detail that's in the sketch, but I adjusted it to go onto this. And this comes down here in the middle, or excuse me, the lower corner. And I came up with some details up here one of the journal boxes, but my journal box is smaller than this 5 1/4 by 3 3/4. So I was worried it was going to feel a little too floaty. So I did make sure to make that additional matte detail there. It could kind of come in maybe as such. And then I'm going to use one of the tags out of the embellishment pack. There is a fun little blue cake, this little happy birthday or HBD, and the party time sticker. So, or excuse me, embellishment. So there's kind of the general gist, but when I was putting this together before making the video, this outside detail was really starting to bother me. Remember, if you look at the original sketch, they've got bigger elements here. They've got bigger photos, and those are pushed to the side to make room for everything. I have smaller elements, and so they're getting, if I cluster them to have, them touching and feeling like that they're really connected to each other, I now have a lot more space on the outside. So what I decided to do is I was going to give it that page, the matted effect. And how I'm going to do that is I'm just going to use, I didn't want to use a whole sheet of paper. I have, I trimmed down some mattes, this blue color from another piece. So what I'm doing is I'm just going to cut some thin strips off of this paper, and I will be just adhering them to the outside of this craft and white paper. And that's just going to go ahead and kind of pull things in a little bit. Rather than using a whole sheet behind it, I just need a little bit of exposure. I'm going to go do this all the way around, and it's just going to help push things in and give that a little bit of additional detail to the outside. So let's go ahead and start working on assembly, because I have a couple other details that I want to share with you, one of which I'm going to be including some mattes behind the photos in the sketch. They are double matted, so I will be including that detail. So let me show you though on these. I have two mattes that I'm working with. My photos are 4x6s and my mattes are 4x6s. I do not want to trim my photos any smaller because I've already, I'm not working with 5x7s. I'm working with 4x6s. I have room to crop them, but I'm not going to. What I am going to do is I am going to trim my mattes into pieces and then pull those pieces out to make them give that matte kind of I call it like an alternative use if you just have a 4x6 matte, how to make it work with a 4x6 photo. So I have these mattes, like I said, they're 4x6. I'm going to go ahead and give them a quick trim, and I'm going to cut them in fourths. So the first one I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it here. I'm going to cut it 2 inches wide. And I'm going to cut each one of these pieces to 3 inches wide. So I'll have a total of 4 equal pieces when I'm done. So there's my 4 equal pieces. And then what I can do here is I'm going to grab some adhesive, and I'm going to attach them to the back of my photo. So I just need to keep track of where they go. You can see there's my 4 corners. I'm going to put some adhesive on the back of my photo here. And I'm going to just carefully work on placing them in here, just one by one. Could use my trimming mat if I wanted to kind of help me get these placed evenly, but I'm just going to eyeball it. I've got repositionable. I can make adjustments if I need to, but you see what I'm getting. I'm getting that pattern that I wanted is starting to show from the side. So that's what I really wanted. I wanted that pattern to show. I didn't want to trim my photo, but I wanted to see some of that paper, that design coming through. So there is the mat. And now when I put it on here, you can see it's just a little bit of a different detail to the mat. So I took a 4x6 mat that wasn't going to work with my 4x6 photo, cut it in fourths, and I was able to spread that mat out and get it to work with that 4x6 photo. Now it's just a matter of adhering the whole darn thing And I'm being generous with my adhesive here. You could use regular adhesive. I default to repositionable a lot. So I'll get that put in place here. And I'm going to do the same thing over here with this mat. Remember, I cut out the title here, and I'm still going to use, it has the colors, has that kind of crafty cork board. So I'll go ahead and cut this one also in quarters. So first I'll cut it in, cutting on the, this top width here is 4 inches. So I'm cutting it at half at 2 inches. And then I will do the bottom here. The other side's 3 inches. So cutting it in quarters. And then it's just a matter of getting these pieces on. This one doesn't, the design doesn't matter too much. Going for about the same mat width. So my mat width, I'm having this stick out about probably 3/16 of an inch. So a little bit more than a quarter, excuse me, a little bit more than an eighth, but not quite a quarter. Sometimes a 1/4 inch is a little too generous, but sometimes 1/8 of an inch, especially when I've got this pattern, is not quite enough. So it's 3/16, but honestly, I'm eyeballing it. So I'm just going for a width that looks good. It's fairly consistent with what I had on the other one, the other photo. And you can see here how it fits there. So it looks pretty good. I'll go ahead and adhere this in place. And now I have my 2 photos ready to go on here. The next thing I'm going to do is I am going to go ahead and adhere. I actually need to cut 2 more of these thin strips with my trimmer. Now my thin strips, I experimented with a 1/4 inch, which would be clear out here to the gray edge, but I didn't, I thought it was too wide. So I'm dialing it back just a little bit, and I'm gonna come out to just past 1/8 of an inch. So again, that's about that 3/16. And I'm just gonna do my best, since 3/16 is not really measurable, I'm just gonna do my best to make them as even as possible. A little bit of eyeballing, you can practice. These thin cuts on the trimmer, they're possible, but you may need to practice. So now I've got a total of 4 of those thin strips, and I'll use some repositionable adhesive, or I could use the thin, the mini tape runner on this as well. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to line up 2 of them, since they're fairly thin. If I line up 2 right next to each other, I can pretty much come down. I can put adhesive on both at the same time and not feel like I'm wasting any of that repositionable adhesive. All right, so I have 2 pieces, got to separate them out just a little bit, and I'll adhere them on the very, very edge. This is kind of the lazy way to give that matted effect to the entire page without actually having to mat it. You can miter the corners if you want. Use your scissors to come in there and snip. I don't think I'm going to worry about it. Once I get it all together, I'll take a peek, and if I really feel that it needs that detail, I'll go ahead and do that. But I think I'm going to be okay without it. There's going to be a lot going on here. Sometimes as you're working, you may think, oh, I definitely need to take care of that little detail, because you'll notice it. But then once you get your layout done, you're like, oh, wait, I don't even notice that anymore. I've got so much other stuff going on here that it's no longer something that catches your eye. I mean, the photos are on there. That's what's going to catch people's eyes. So I'm just keep working all the way around and getting these strips put in place. One more to put on. And then we'll be ready to start putting all the other elements in place. I need to get that border detail made to go across the top. So here we go. If I rotate this back around, so I'm showing back here at the top, I'm going to go ahead and put this banner piece here on this border, on this strip. And I know I need to have a little bit of detail over here. So I'm just going to come in here and grab my photo. And it looks like if I come in here and I cut at this line right there, I should be fine. So I'm going to come in here and cut right at this dark blue, where that dark blue line meets here. And this is all going to vary depending on your supply situation. Like I said, I'm kind of working with, you know, maybe some poor choices of cutting on previous projects that left me with some weird shapes to my, for my pieces there. But you can see now how that's going to fit in there. And I'm going to work on just, for the rest of this, I am just going to dry fit. I'll adhere the rest of it down later. But let me just show you how it's all going to work. So I've got that border detail in. It may push up just a little bit here to the top. I'm coming edge to edge here. So you can see those pieces that I tucked in there, it does tuck in behind a little bit more. So that top photo is going to lay over here. And then the bottom photo, this is supposed to layer behind. And so this is where I'm kind of making sure I'm looking at my borders here. I want to be even. Whatever I get up here at the top for this border, I want to give down here at this side. So my photos are even in their respective corners. And then I can adjust that border. Now my title detail that I made over here will come here. So it fits there nicely. And then I have my journaling detail box, or my journaling pieces here. My tag. And this is the other thing that's nice. Since I've got this extra space around my pictures, I don't need to worry about where the overlap is. And I don't need to worry if my embellishment starts to come over here. I've got space for that. So by not cutting things down, not, you know, making my photos more cropped, I've got space for some of these extra things. So this will kind of come in as such. And then the party time. So we'll get some of this I need to just play with a little bit, but you'll kind of see how it's all taking shape. So there you can see pretty much that's how it's going to look. You can see though, just imagine if I didn't have this darker strip all the way around, it would feel like things were kind of just floating there in the middle. So because I used those smaller elements, I pushed them towards the middle and then just went with this detail on the outside. Super easy to add, and it just helps complete things since I was working with the smaller things than the sketch was calling for. So that's sketch number 1, the February 2022 Creative Memories Virtual Crop. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you have a chance to give the sketch a try. If you do, please do share. I would love to see it. Thanks for watching.